Lovely dish this evening. Salmon on the spinach with peas and mushroom sauce with wedge potatoes. Absolutely brilliant. You'll enjoy it.
Hello there. Today I'm going to cook salmon fillet on top of spinach and the mushroom and pea sauce with wedge potato.
Sounds good, and it sure is good as well. So here we go. We've got 4 handfuls of spinach here, which works out about 300 grams. Take off most of the stalks and get ready to just fry it and wilt it a bit. We've got 3 shallots, which are chopped, and a couple of cloves of garlic, which are chopped. Then we're having wedge potatoes. So you prepare enough potatoes for 3 people and cut them into little wedge pieces, maybe quarterized, whatever. But as you can see, that sort of collection, enough for 3 people. We've got, for the sauce, we've got 100 grams of peas, which we've prepared here, so they're ready. We've got 120 grams of mushrooms, champignon mushrooms, which are ready there. We've got 3 pieces of salmon, working out at about 350 grams, and we've skinned the salmon and put them on that beautiful, my favorite, blue plastic plate. Then we're going to need to pop in some lemon juice, not lime juice, lemon juice. And here we've got 1 tablespoon of lemon juice from the lemon tree in our garden. We've got some white wine, works out at about 120 ml of white wine. I think it's 2/3 of a glass of white wine anyway. We've got 200 ml of a cream milk mixture, like we used before. Most people use a lot of cream, but we mix it with milk to reduce the richness. And then we're also going to need some butter, which I've popped in the fridge. But for seasoning, we're going to need some paprika for the potatoes, some herbes de Provence, some herbs from the south of France for sprinkling on the salmon, and some fresh black pepper, grindy black pepper, and some Himalayan salt as well. And now there's some slight difficulty. The butter we need to use in three lots. So we've got 3 lots of butter, 20 grams to begin with, and another 20 grams there to begin with, and then for the spinach, 50 grams. So, but we're not going to be using any oil, so it's just butter, which isn't too much between 3 people. So there we go. That's the ingredients for tonight. And the first thing we do is we don't boil the potatoes for very long, maybe about 5 to 10 minutes, probably more like 10 minutes. So they're half boiled. So those are going to go into some water which we've got boiling on the stove. They're pretty sort of newish potatoes, so we don't take the skins off. Great roughage, you know. So those we'll bring back to the boil and then boil for about 8 to 10 minutes and come back to you. Right, the potatoes after 8 minutes are soft enough to come out. You don't want them too soft, otherwise they'll break. So now we've drained them. They go in a bowl. We add a tiny bit, a drop of olive oil over the top of them to just cover them for the air fryer, and mix them around so that they all get an incredibly thin coating of olive oil. And then we will apply a bit of salt, a bit of pepper, black pepper on them. fresh black pepper, as I always say, is absolutely delicious. Remember, there are potatoes underneath as well, so don't worry if they look a bit strong on the top. They all need to mix round so that they all get a bit of a coating. It all goes to show why Indonesia was so popular those hundreds of years ago. The spice islands of Asia, Southeast Asia. Pepper was the one I would have sailed that far for. And some Himalayan rock salt, deep beneath the Himalayas, this lovely nutty salt. But again, not too much, because salt, of course, spreads the flavour, so that's plenty of that. And then we apply some paprika, which gives it a how do you describe paprika? It's a I don't know, paprika. It's well, it's definitely worth putting in anyway, and you need to make sure they all have a bit of paprika on them. I think it's a relative of the chili probably or something, but it isn't spicy. It just has a nice crisp, earthy, roasty sort of a flavour. And then they're going to go in the air fryer. So you extract the air fryer tray and dump them in. There's plenty of room, but we'll still need to come back to them every so often and turn them. The air fryer's set on about 180, and we put them on for about 20 minutes. And then we go back. While they're in, we're going to start on the rest of it.
Come on, we ready.
Whoops. Right, the first 20 grams is in there. So in go the shallots and the garlic, and toast them around in the butter. Already that flavour's coming out. Isn't it extraordinary how one's nose gets stimulated by the same thing, and it always smells just as good, if not a bit better, than when you last smelt it. Absolutely delightful. So that's almost ready, so we're going to add the mushrooms. And give them a quick turn around the wok. As you will all know, mushrooms, when you cook them, first of all they release a bit of liquid and then they reabsorb it. Still, the pan should be dry. The shallots and the garlic are cooking and going clear and soft, and it really doesn't matter if they aren't. Those look as if they're pretty good. So now we'll add the wine and the cream, or I should say, the creamy milky mixture, because it's not all cream. Good Lord, we've learned not to do that sort of thing. And in goes the glass of white wine, which gives it that nice tangy flavour. And it all gets a good stir around. And then we will leave this to simmer very slowly until we've lost about half the volume of liquid. You want to boil off about half of it, reduce it, I think they call it. But before we do that, of course, it needs a bit of salt and a bit of pepper. So just a light covering of pepper, because there's so much pepper on other things that we don't need it to be too strong here. And a light sprinkling of pink salt as well. That looks like plenty. Again, that stirs around and gets a chance to cook slowly. Doesn't need to be on high heat. Slowly, to release the aromas and to release the flavors and to meld the ingredients into a unity that will suit the salmon. We'll be back in a few, probably a couple of minutes for that. We're just about to move on to the salmon, but first we need to turn over the potatoes. See how they're going. They're looking ripe already. So just give them a quick turnaround to even out the heat and the exposure. See the paprika sprinkled all over? Yummy. Okay, and pop them back in. Right, now the potatoes are underway, everything's underway, the sauce is reducing. So we've spread the second lot of 20 grams of butter on top of each of the salmon fillets. And now we add the herbs from the south of France, Herbes de Provence, and give it a good sprinkle over each piece of fish, because the herbs really need to take out this flavor, there we go. So it's best just pop some in the hand and make sure it's well covered, and then we pop. It needs to go under the grill. We don't have a grill, so we're using our microwave, which is here. So we pop it into our microwave, and then we set it for about, we need the grill on for about 8 to 10 minutes. Okay, right, the salmon's in. We're going to now quickly turn the potatoes again, see how they're getting on. Coming along. Won't be too long now. So you just turn them over, make sure that some will break, but that doesn't matter. And back in. Right, so the last stage is to do the spinach. So we pop the 50 grams of butter into the wok and encourage it to melt as fast as possible. We mustn't forget while that's melting, we mustn't forget the peas, which are ready, and go in with the mushroom sauce. Stir it around to get heated up and to make sure they're cooked through. The butter is virtually ready, so get that round a bit, and then the spinach just goes in on top of it, because spinach needs very little cooking. You just basically pop it in, flatten it down, and maybe give it a bit of a stir for the butter to coat it. But the spinach will, of course, reduce as it does. It cooks with its own water. So we'll flatten all that out, and then we'll give the potatoes another quick turn. Ting gets tired of using a spoon, so she just gives it a quick shake. And pops it back in. The spinach is wilting. You have to keep going with the spinach until it has wilted down to a softness with which you are happy to eat. And certainly not there yet, so we'll probably leave that for a few minutes, and there is still the lemon juice to go in to the mushroom sauce. So we pop that in and mix it around, give it a taste to make sure that it's right, because of course, lemons and limes all have different acidities. So we give it a quick taste. That's good. And if we need a bit more, we can always pop into the garden and get another one. But that's okay, and we'll leave that simmering for a while. Back to the spinach to see how that's going, because I can hear that sizzling. So the water's coming out of it, and as you can see, it's reducing down quite nicely. The salmon is needs a check, so I'm just going to check and come back to you. The salmon's looking good in the microwave, but testing with a fork inside, because these are quite high fillets, the insides aren't quite cooked enough. So we're going to carry on and give this another, we gave it 8 minutes, I think. We'll get 10 minutes, I think it was actually. We'll give it another 2 or 3 minutes and come back again. There we go, the spinach has wilted and gone down to, as you can see. That sounds as if it's absolutely perfect. I mean, it looks as if it's perfect. The sauce is ready. The salmon's having another couple of minutes in, and we'll take a last look at the wedge potatoes in the French fryer, in the air fryer, and give them one last turn. My God, look at those. They're looking absolutely scrumptious. They're so good in the mashed up in the sauce. So we'll give them another couple of seconds while they're dealing with the salmon. Okay, it seems to be ready. So here we go. The spinach goes as a bed on the plate for the salmon to rest upon, because nothing is better for a salmon than to rest upon a spinach bed. So we'll remove the salmon, which is looking good in that. I think it's actually ready. Looks good, doesn't it? But then it is always good, this dish. The only thing that varies is the thickness of the salmon may prejudice how well it's cooked, but then we all love salmon sushi, so it doesn't really matter. You saw that with a bit of the sauce. The salmon sits happily on there, and then we'll get some potatoes out to go with it. The potatoes that are in the air fryer. There we go. And so the lovely helping, look at those. I mean, look at those potatoes. They really do look nice, don't they? And I think we need a tiny bit more juice off oh no, there's probably enough. And so now we pour some sauce over that from the mixture with a nice bit of liquid, which can be soaked up by the potatoes if you so wish. And there you have your salmon on a bed of spinach in a mushroom and pea sauce with wedge potatoes. I suggest you have a glass of white wine with it, if not 2. Enjoy.